Welcome to Life on Maui. I'm your host, Steve.
Welcome to Life on Maui. I am your co-host, Radhe.
So, we have a wonderful story for you today, an immigrant story. The story of Radhe, who grew up in Bolivia till she was 17, went to college in Russia for 4 years, not speaking a word of Russian. She learned Russian, went to college for 4 years, then came to Brooklyn, New York, learned English from scratch, got her master's degree while single-handedly raising her daughter. And this is one of the wonderful immigrant stories. I don't know if you saw the movie Brooklyn this year, but here it is. It's Brooklyn. And then from Brooklyn to New Jersey, then to Maui. So here's an immigrant story that's going to be fascinating and inspiring. So welcome to our show.
Wow, that was quite an intro. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, that's the we call that the 2-minute thumbnail.
Yeah.
So, like I said, you lived in Bolivia till you were 17. What prompted you to leave?
What prompted me to leave Bolivia? Well, yeah, I grew up in Bolivia until I was 17. And the culture in Bolivia and back in those days put a lot of responsibility on the older siblings. And I was the older sister, the eldest of two. And it was never stated verbally.
Eldest of three.
The eldest of three, I'm sorry, yeah. It was never stated verbally, but there was always the expectation of taking care of my other sisters, having a lot of chores in the house, and just basically a lot of responsibilities. Older siblings were often treated almost as adults, and I felt that burden in my shoulders since I was a kid, and I just couldn't wait to grow up and just leave.
Oh, you couldn't wait to get out of there.
That was one big part of it. So I used to just dream with the day when I just will be free and away.
Could be out of there.
And
yeah.
the second reason was, I guess as most people, my parents were not the happiest couple. There was always drama in the house, and I was like, oh, I just can't wait to be out. I think those would be the two main reasons.
And what are some of the life experiences that you gathered while you were in Moscow, going to college?
Yeah, going to college in Moscow, well, it meant so much to me at that young age. The most significant was, and I'll tell you a little story about that. When I was learning Russian, the language, we had a teacher, a very old Russian lady who was a sweetheart. And we all liked her very much, but she was just bad at smoking. She smoked so much. She would always be the first one to leave the classroom to hit her cigarettes and then come back with all that smoky breath. One time we asked her, why do you smoke so much? And she said that during the Second World War, there was nothing to eat. And the only thing that she looked forward to when she woke up in the mornings was that cigarette. And it's the only thing that carried her on. So It was she was entitled to any cigarette she wanted.
Absolutely.
And nobody could take that away from her.
Yeah, so whatever the concept is of that you shouldn't smoke didn't apply to her.
Not at all.
Not
and
at all.
She was bonded.
Yeah.
And it was her life savior. And it was very touching, and many stories like that, that really helped me understand the spirit of the Russians and what a real war, world war means to people.
You really encountered firsthand the effect of the World War on them.
Yeah, that's what Moscow
Yeah.
meant in my life. Before, we learn history from books, and you put that in your head and go to your test, and you just repeat that back.
Yeah.
But here I was having a different kind of lesson.
Firsthand.
And that's what Russia left in my heart, in my life.
Did you encounter the, our concept always is of long lines for everything. Did you encounter that?
Every single day.
For
yes.
everything?
Well, toilet paper, toothpaste, anytime a major item like that was heard of, we all run. I mean, everybody would go, and then you most definitely want to stand there for 2 hours, however long, but you just needed to be there to get your item, and God forbid you try to skip somebody, you would be yelled at. I mean, the old ladies, the babushki, the grandmas will put you back in your place, and they'll tell you what to do with your life. So,
And they're not polite. No, they're right in your face, I'll bet.
if you live in Moscow, I think you can live in any other place as far as rude as it could be.
I got
You'll
you.
survive.
And also, you had probably for the first time such a multicultural experience as well.
It was, yes, that was very significant. Also, college life, we were all, well, they were mostly Russians, but in every class there was at least 1 or 2 foreign students. And it was incredible. I met people from all over the world. And at that age, connecting with them meant so much history, learning about their cultures, their countries, their the history, everyone's history, and most importantly, after sharing our dorm life, the understanding that we're all the same.
Oh,
we all want
wonderful.
the same things.
How wonderful.
At the end of the day, we're all the same.
Oh, how wonderful. And speaking of that, you met the father of Vanessa, your daughter.
Yes.
He was originally from Dominican Republic, and you met him in Moscow.
Correct.
And that is what took you to New York.
Yes, he was, by then he had just finished his graduate studies in engineering. And a couple of years later, when I was done, he invited me to spend 2 weeks in New York. And it was perfect. I was just done, and I welcomed the opportunity. So I took my carry-on for 2 weeks, and I landed in New York.
So you came with 2 weeks worth of clothes.
Correct. And
gotcha.
if I may say, my first impression of New York was bad, was pathetic, because the first thing that shocked me was the metro, the subway system. I was coming from one of the most beautiful metro subway systems, I would say probably the top 15 or so in the world.
So beautiful,
Marble, aesthetic, a lot of art. And then go to New York and see the rats and the dirtiness. And
that's before it got cleaned up, yeah.
Before it got cleaned up, yeah. But the air conditioning was there.
Aha!
So that kind of helped a little bit.
So, you're in New York, and now it's within the first year and a half, and you're pregnant.
Yes.
With your wonderful daughter, Vanessa. And talk about that experience for you. I know that talk about your teaching. You were teaching chemistry in Brooklyn in the public schools. And you had an angel from God, and her family came to help support you. Talk about that experience.
Yeah. So I was in New York, and I was pregnant by then and decided to stay. And in time, I came upon a very supportive family, in particular the mother. Her name was Mommy Tonya. That's the affectionate way of calling her. And with her help, which was really a gift from God, I was able to just do many things. I would never have to worry about Vanessa, who was just a baby. Mommy Tonya would just give her more than what anybody would, and most importantly, love. She was really the baby the baby in the house. And with that peace of mind, I was able to go to school and finish some courses that would allow me to validate my diploma from Russia, and also at the same time learn English, and at the same time support myself. So it was a very challenging, perhaps the most challenging time in my life.
Oh my God.
And but back in those days, I didn't think of it that way. It was
Right.
just like, okay, so you do this, all right, so you do this. Okay, it was the next logical step.
It's what you had to do, so you didn't even give any thought. There was no resistance. This is what you had to do to survive.
Right.
So you spent 11 years teaching chemistry and
Yeah.
biology
Yes.
in Brooklyn, and how was that for you?
At first, it was very good. I landed on a very good high school in Brooklyn, yes, at the heart of Brooklyn.
The heart of Brooklyn.
At the heart of Brooklyn. And I was very fortunate because I worked with the good kids, and a bilingual program at first, and then just the very good kids. And eventually, though, I just realized that that wasn't for me. Teaching is not very creative. The system is designed to standardize the test. I mean, everything is geared towards...
Those tests you fill in the little dots. Oh,
Yes.
oh, I hated those tests.
Yes,
Yeah.
and chemistry is not everybody's favorite subject.
Right.
So it was very limiting, and I knew that sooner than later I had to do something more authentic for myself, something that meant more and that had more space for expression. So
Gotcha. But growing up in New York was also very rich. You fully took advantage, and with your daughter, with all of the arts and the museums, and you used to go to Lincoln Center and the opera. Talk about that.
yes,
The richness,
that's
richness
true.
of that experience.
Yes, that's true. Those were really wonderful times, especially because with teaching, we had the summers off. The day ended pretty early, like 3. And we were able to do many things, just like you said. We did a lot of off-Broadway shows, we did operas, we did museums, we did anything, everything. It was great. It kept us really busy, and no time for TV. And it was very enriching. And I would say that New York is a really great place for raising kids. But later in life, I mean, as she was approaching the intermediate school, middle school, the question of would I just trust my daughter to take the subway or cross the streets in peace?
Yeah.
It was kind of
No,
like,
I get it.
something was starting to change in
Something
me.
was beginning to shift. And also at that point is around that time that meditation came into your life.
That's true.
And it was not the kind of like go inside and do this kind. It was the kind that had to do with setting goals, being very focused on them, and manifesting.
Yes, that's correct. That's the way it expressed itself in me, or rather, that's how I use meditation. I learned to sit quiet, to concentrate, and to focus my mind on a goal. And for at least 10 years, meditation was very outward. And it really helped me be very focused, efficient. It really helped me manifest or accomplish my goals. And for example, one very significant experience that I had where meditation was key was when I decided to buy a house. And this was really critical for me because
and there was a Hindu girl who bought a house that got some juices flowing in
That's
you, right?
true.
You saw a Hindu girl younger than you who bought a house, and that really got your juices flowing.
That's true. I was working one summer, and there was a Hindu girl who was young, and she said, "Oh, I just bought a house." And the way it hit me is like, what does she have that I don't have that allows her to buy a house? And why can I? Why not me?
And I also want to make a note that how important this was, because your family never owned a house. You never grew up with home ownership as a core value because your parents never owned a house.
And that's where meditation was key.
Yeah.
Because after that experience with the Hindu girl, I went home and I said, that's it. If she can do it, I can do it. And I sat in meditation and I was quieting my mind, and I realized that I had no point of reference. What does owning a house mean? My parents never owned a house. We always moved from one rental to another. So I struggle a lot into trying to really see myself as a homeowner. But at the same time, I became very, very almost obsessed that I'm not going to live the life that my parents lived. I'm going to have a house before I reach 30, and that was it. And it didn't matter how long I will make this happen. So I started my house hunting.
And at one point you went to see 80 homes.
Yes.
And you applied for 8 different ones and were rejected.
Well,
how was that for you? I mean, that must have been very discouraging.
It was a seller's market.
Yeah.
And so it was very easy for anybody selling their house. But to be a buyer around that time, yes, I would save the listings at home just to compare them. You know, this house had this many rooms, the other one had this many rooms, and I would just make a point to look at them before I go to sleep. And then one day I actually decided to count how many of these listings I had, and I couldn't believe that I had 80 papers.
Oh my God.
Sitting on my desk.
80.
And yes, sometimes I would just come back home crying because, as you said, I made 8 offers and the 8 times I was rejected. So it was very difficult. It seemed like I had every obstacle along with my inner feelings of like, no, I don't have what it takes to be a homeowner. And only when I went back to my meditation, I would completely reset myself and say, yes, I can. I'm not going to pay attention to the outside. Yes, I can, no matter what my mind or what the outside says, it's going to happen.
So this is a really important part of this story is against all odds and all of the mental constructs and role models and everything, through your meditation, through your visioning, you really started manifesting this American dream, so to speak, or the you know what it was that you really wanted.
Yes.
And so now you have a master's degree. You just
Yes.
purchased a beautiful lakefront home in New
Yes.
Jersey. You have a teenage daughter at this point who wasn't so compliant. She's coming from New York where everything's happened. Now she moves to a lake community in New Jersey
Where
that's
nothing
very
is
quiet.
happening.
Nothing's happening. She's like, Mom, why'd you bring me here for? So you had to deal with all of that, and you're moving into this new community.
Yes.
There's so much to that. I mean, you commuted for 2 hours. Talk about that.
Yes, it was really crazy. That's all correct. Vanessa, she was just starting middle school, and I was just so happy because finally the house manifested, and now I don't have to worry about her crossing the street. There will be a bus picking her up, and everything will be beautiful. But no, it wasn't. She had a very difficult time going from a big city to small town, 2 different cultures altogether. And for me, it was a 2-hour commute. But again, the 2-hour commute was really good because in those 2 hours, and it was 2 hours one way and 2 hours the other way. So during that time, I would think about, I would plan a little bit my year, my days, and listened to a lot of motivational books on tape.
You love Napoleon Hill, didn't
And
you?
I like, yes, Napoleon Hill. And it was a little bit of a meditation on a wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember at that point, I decided that I was no longer happy with my teaching job, that as you said, I was just done with my master's degree, and I felt like another world is opening, and this is the perfect time for me to make a change. But again, it was difficult because the New York City Board of Ed had this stability. You know, you can count on it, the benefits. I had just purchased a house.
And this was right around 9/11.
And this was around 9/11. But I still decided that I'm not going to pay attention to anything.
But people said, especially after 9/11, when you know, some of the teaching jobs were getting taken and everything, like, people were saying, "You're crazy to leave teaching," right?
Yes, I think I made a mistake. Now I see it was a mistake, but back then it was just part of the process. I share my desire with a few colleagues, and everyone told me, "You are absolutely mad. You're just totally crazy. How can you want to leave this steady job when September 11 just happened and everybody is, well, a lot of people lost their jobs."
Oh, yeah.
So they were just taking any job that was out there in the city, and one of them was teaching. So here I was, trying to make a very risky move when, you know, in the aftermath of September 11. And yes, it was very scary, and of course I allowed that to influence me to some extent. But then again, as I was driving back, every day as I was driving back, I would go back to that state where I would say, "I don't care." And I began to repeat something. I began to repeat like a mantra. At the time, I had no idea what a mantra was. And I just decided to put an ideal salary for me. And I decided that I wanted to make twice as much as I was making as a high school teacher. So I decided to put, you know, I'm going to make over $100,000 a year. I couldn't even think what that meant at the time.
Right, because current day now in Bolivia, $800 a month is a good salary.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would just say to myself like a parrot, $100,000, $100,000. I had to win my mind. I could not allow one gap, because my mind will give me 1,000 reasons why that was not real, that was impossible, September 11 and blah, blah, blah. And so I had to just completely be very loud in my inner world and shush every other voice and just loudly say to myself, yes, this is possible. And well, I did that for almost a year or maybe a year and a half. And then finally it happened.
Yeah, so this is a very clear idea of focus, because what that led to was a very good job in the corporate pharma industry,
Yes.
which gave you the ability for, you know, traveling and creativity and responsibility that was really flourishing for you.
It was real. It was really a gift. It was really a gift. I felt that, okay, this is what manifesting is. I was, for the first time, seeing, actually for the second time, seeing that this works. And I landed on, as you said, on a corporate job at the headquarters, working right across from the United Nations. And I had, yes, I had everything and more than what I thought. Financially it was great. I traveled a lot, and all kinds of technologies were available. I also was able to work part of the time from home. So it was really great, and most importantly, that I was able to open up to my own creativity, and it was very appreciated. So it was really great, and I really enjoyed. I mean, for the first time in my life, I really genuinely enjoy working with the people that I work.
Oh, how wonderful.
So it was really good, and it completed a part of me that was hungry for career, for wanting to express my potential.
Gotcha. And then underneath all of this, there was another thing brewing, which was that you wanted to have this life plan that was going to make you not dependent on anything. And that's what took you into the real estate.
That's right.
And you, within a very short period of time, it was right in that time of the bubble, and then, well, we know what happened after that. So you bought 6 houses. You were really on your way to financial freedom and doing really well. And so how did all that go for you?
Yes, that's true. Yes, as I was commuting back and forth and working at home, again and again, I thought, yes, I don't want to depend upon any 401ks, any government pensions, or I just want to be independent. And I was on my way to have my home investments be my financial freedom. And I was very focused, and yeah, it happened. But also, it got compounded. At first, it was good, but eventually, it got kind of like compounded with I got married at that time,
Right.
and we were going through
Marriage
difficult
crisis.
times, marriage
crisis.
crisis. Yeah. So between the marriage crisis and the real estate crisis,
And so all of this
all
was
of
booming,
this,
and then it crashed.
it crashed. Yeah.
Right.
So it just really made things very difficult. But also, the real estate was a great recipe for financial freedom. But I also realized that, and especially once after I was divorced, after the divorce, I realized that it was very, very difficult as a woman to maintain all my tenants, all the units. I just did not like to interact with electricians and plumbers and go to Home Depot and do all these and have my car with, with tools.
Oh, yeah.
So I just realized that this was not for me. So when the real estate crash happened, in a way, I was like, yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to let go.
There was a
I
sense
don't
of
want
relief
it.
that went along with everything else.
Yes, one thing that was very good and beautiful is that the real estate was the third big manifestation in my life, and perhaps the one that was less effortful. It was much easier than my first home, than the job. This time it almost happened by itself, and it had more meaning. I decided that all my homes would serve women, single moms or women in one way or another, not just a tenant, but that I would do my best to help them. And it really happened. Mm-hmm. It really happened that a lot of my tenants were women, divorced women, single women, and I really did my best to help them, not just as a home owner, but really help them as a human, as a friend. And so it was good.
And right around this time, you met your guru. And now you met somebody. It wasn't that same kind of meditation. It was the kind of meditation that takes you within, and it challenged everything.
Yes.
Everything in your life. Like what?
First, let me say, I met my guru in the middle of that crisis, divorce, real estate, and when I connected to his energy, he challenged every part of me that was used to thinking in logical terms.
Right. You're a very rational, logical being, and this went against all of that in one sense.
Yeah, he was talking about surrender, and I was like, "What, surrender? What does that mean, surrender?" It's like, internally, it was basically defragmenting everything that was conditioned, over my entire life. So, and I could not avoid it. It just seems like the meditation had hit another threshold that now it was it was moving into my inner world. It was no longer outside. Now it was going in, and there were things that I needed to rearrange, defragment, reset. And yeah, that's when my guru or my teacher, his name is Shiva Baba. His name was Shiva Baba at the time. That's when
And now his name?
he changed his name to Dr. Pillai.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it was a very significant time in my life for internal changes.
Yeah, yeah.
But also, eventually, what that led was to, once I puked out all these attachments to rationality and, and I was able to open new areas, new ways of perception, new ways of thinking, new ways of being. Along with that came something that I was very, very starving for, and that was just peace, inner peace.
Yeah.
Just being content, satisfied, and happy with myself.
And I can say that I can see that has really taken root in you.
Yes.
It really has taken root in you. And from there, you had visions of palm trees. You had visions of palm trees and ocean, and what wound up happening is that you bought a one-way ticket to Maui.
Yes.
A one-way ticket to Maui, not knowing anyone. I know this is some people's story as well, but
Yeah.
you just as a single woman, one-way ticket to Maui, also with a dream of a dream, and a very one that you put a lot of intention into, of meeting your beloved, meeting your life partner. So talk about that, since I have personal interest in this story.
Yes. So I was in a very good place in my life. As you said, finally, I was in this beautiful lake home that I was very grateful for. In the mornings, I would just look outside my window, and there was the lake, and it was so beautiful. And then in my meditations, I would see palm trees and sunsets. And at first, I would just dismiss. That's what we do, right, as we meditate. But then 6 months later, I would question what's going on. And I realized that I was witnessing the arising of a very true, authentic desire. And so as much as I tried to fight it off and said to myself, I'm happy, I don't need to do anything, I just couldn't deal with it. The energy for a change was huge. And in a very synchronistic way, after I surrendered to the idea, one thing led to the other, and then I ended up buying a one-way ticket to Maui, right around the time when New Jersey was hit with the worst hurricane called Sandy. And I was right out just before that, actually the same day, right out New Jersey and landing into Maui. And as far as my beloved, we recorded a video together called Manifesting Your Desires. And there we talked, both of us talk a little bit about how we manifested each other.
Manifesting what you want.
Manifesting what you want, correct.
It's on YouTube. Look it up. It's really good, and we talk about this.
Yeah, so I would just basically say that, it's been a long cultivation. There was always that desire in my heart to have a relationship that was easy, that was natural, that would just flow, that was fulfilling, that I had to do nothing but be myself. And much like the other meditations, I would just bring my attention to it day after day after day, and the result of it is here.
Well, this is a story of mutuality, so the same goes in reverse.
Yes.
So this is kind of like a nice happily ever after movie here. So here we are, and we're sitting in Sun Yat-sen Park in Ulapalakua. The sun is setting. This is like the end of a perfect movie. And this will be the end of our interview. As the sun sets in the west on the beautiful island of Maui, having met are beloved and enjoying and grateful for every day. So, unless you have something, do you have anything else to add?
I think this was really great to share my life. I tend to shy away from it because I like to, let go of the past. Thank you, Steve, for taking it taking it out of me.
Absolutely. Woo!
Yeah.
Woo! All right, so thank you so much for joining us in this episode of Life on Maui. Please come back for the next episode, and until then, aloha.
And please let us know your comments, share your thoughts, write down on YouTube. Until next time, aloha.
Call me crazy, but I'm never giving up my dreams. No matter how far away they seem, maybe crazy